Greetings and welcome to this edition of
Positronic.
I'm Barry P. Cook. I want to talk about the return of Doom Patrol. Season 3 premiered with a 3-episode event, and I want to talk about those episodes. The first one was called Possibilities Patrol. We start off pretty much where the last season left off. Candlemaker has the girl in a cage, Dorothy, but she escapes and traps him with her in like a snowscape in her mind, determined to reforge their friendship so she won't have to fight with him and then go on to hurt people and basically destroy the universe, which I guess was going to happen otherwise, because that was the big bad last season, that he was going to sort of destroy everything if she lost control of him. While that's happening, the rest of the team comes out of their waxed state, because he had waxed them all like candles, at the carnival, and they find the chief on the ground, and of course he's deceased. But it turns out, what do you know, Dorothy and Candlemaker emerge from the ground, and because they were able to work it out, she reabsorbs him inside of herself before crying over her dead father in a massive Deus Ex Machina resolution of the previous season. Like, they built up this huge thing where, oh my God, 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 she's going to lose control of Candlemaker. He's going to wipe out everything. The team is turned into like wax candles almost. They're covered over in wax. He's like entrapped her within her own mind in a cage, and they're going to have a fight of the wills. And if he takes over or whatever, he's going to destroy everything. Oh my God, what are they going to do? Massive cliffhanger. It's cool. We worked it out. I mean, not that you want to see those things drag on either, but like, really? All that build up, and the solution was, we're not leaving this state of being in our minds until we resolve our issue. And then they resolve the issue, and that's it. Like, really? You couldn't have done that earlier in the season? Like, it had to come to this? Like, stupid. Anyway, it turns out that now Robot Man, Cliff, is having trouble with his appendages for some reason. Negative Man has a conversation with Rita about their blasé feelings on the passing of the chief. Dorothy declares that she won't allow the chief to be buried until Jane wakes up. Jane, of course, being sort of comatose because there's a war of the personalities inside her, or some kind of a coup going on between the personalities inside her. Rita reads a letter that was left to her by the chief, in which he tells her that he's left her a secret which can apparently be accessed by means of a key that he's left with the letter. Inside herself, Jane tries to tell her inner child, her core self, Kay, that Miranda is a liar, but that she will fix things. Kay doesn't answer her, but this is what she tells her. Rita rehearses Our Town with her castmates, one of whom is playing her, not knowing that she's the rubbery lady. She ends up having a meltdown about the chief, having left her the secret, and her own secret comes out. She starts to kind of melt. Jane confronts the fake Miranda, who turns out to be sort of a repository of Kay's self-doubt. And the confrontation doesn't go well. Chief shows up as a ghost to Cliff and asks for his body to be buried, but to be burned rather. But Cliff says no, he's not going to help him. Chief then tells him that he was the one responsible for reconnecting Cliff and his daughter, to which Cliff is like, okay, that's cool, but I still hate you. Negative Man contemplates leaving the team, this is Larry, at the behest of his energy passenger, which I guess is really the Negative Man. But he declines to do so. He says, no, I'm not doing that. Cyborg's ex, Ronnie, wants to blow up a building, but he kind of stops her. He interrupts her plan and stops her. Jane gets stuck in a loop working on a puzzle because of her confrontation with Miranda. But Kay shows up to help her break out of it, and she breaks out of it, and she's going to try to regain consciousness, regain control of Jane's body. So Kay takes Jane to a plane in the middle of a field inside the world that they inhabit inside Jane's mind, that Jane intends to fly to the surface. In other words, to go upwards to take over the body, which normally was done by means of a train, but the train was taken out by Miranda. She gets in the plane, she tries to start it up, but fake Miranda shows up to try to stop her. Before Jane can get to the surface, fake Miranda takes control of Jane's body and attacks Dorothy, who was there trying to help her wake up outside in the real world. But Dorothy then rallies the team, but not before fake Miranda punches Cliff as he tries to tell her about having become a grandfather. The other personalities, meanwhile, inside Jane's body help Jane get the plane flying as fake Miranda tries to hang Jane's body off of a light fixture in the real world. But she fails because Jane manages to take control and is caught by Cliff, who enters the room just as she's about to fall off the table or the chair, whatever it was, with the rope around her neck. Rita and Negative Man, or Larry, I guess, talk, and he decides he is going to go on a walkabout with his Negative Man passenger, and he flies off after saying goodbye to Rita. Cliff visits his grandbaby, and he flashes back to when his own daughter was also a baby. Jane loads Chief's body and Dorothy into an ambulance, which Danny is in control of. Danny Street has now become an ambulance, and she heads to the Arctic to lay him to rest. Rita wakes up from, I guess, a nap to the key blaring an alarm, and it leads her to a book labeled The Secret, behind which she finds a locked cabinet with a ringing phone and a speaker blaring arrival imminent, but she's unable to touch the phone to answer it. She tries to reach in, but it keeps knocking her hand down. It was kind of weird. A crazy digging vehicle shows up in the middle of town. It just comes up out of the ground, like in Journey to the Center of the Earth there. And an unknown woman gets out and immediately urinates in the middle of the street before asking a passerby where she can find the chief. And she then morphs back and forth into different people wearing the same clothes, like her face changes. It was kind of weird. And it was like out of her control. She was kind of like having a seizure almost of morphing. The chief, still being a ghost in the mansion, ends up floating up and having sex with one of the sex ghosts that's like haunting, or a couple of the sex ghosts that are haunting the mansion that had been there in last season. I don't know why they put that in there, but they did. But just before the episode ends, we see Kipling, who was in last season, digging up the chief's body and taking his head for some reason. I don't know what that's about, but that's what happened. So that was the end of the first episode of the season. Again, I didn't like how they resolved the ending of last season so quickly in a very Deus Ex Machina fashion, but they introduced some intriguing things like The Secret and the Mysterious Woman, which I'm thinking are connected. So that'll be interesting as it, develops over the course of the season. I was glad to see Jane regain consciousness. They could have dragged that out, and I'm glad that they didn't. The second episode was called Vacay Patrol. The Brotherhood of Evil is apparently plotting against the chief in 1949 at the beginning of this episode. And as such, they decide to target Rita, which I guess they figure is going to get them to the chief somehow, or hurt the chief, or I don't know. But by 1989, they haven't been able to do anything because she hasn't shown up where they thought she would be. In the present, Rita reads about the shapeshifter lady showing up in town in the morning paper, and it kind of makes her go all Odo into a planter. I don't know why. She loses control of her ability and sort of just melts down and collects herself in a planter. I don't know what that was about exactly. But next we see that Larry, who's been, I guess, flying through space by virtue of the energy being, he's taken to the energy being's home planet. Cliff is spending time helping out his daughter, but he freezes up while holding the baby because he's having a problem with his motor control. Victor gets his network access cut off for letting his ex get away as she was trying to blow up that building. And Rita asks him to take her on vacation from inside the planter, and Jane's persona secretary books them a trip before Jane decides to join them. Back to Larry, he has a weird interaction of some kind with what looks like himself, and I don't know what happened in the scene. There was a version of himself that looks like all messed up from the radiation approaches him, and then they kind of touch, and then it reverses and passes to him. It was very strange. But he then returns home without his passenger. Jane, Vic, Cliff, and Rita, who's in a sack, go to a remote town for vacation to escape the gloom of the manor. Cliff goes into the sauna and meets Garguax, who is with the Brotherhood of Evil, and the Brotherhood of Evil are still there waiting for Rita to arrive. And the two of them realize that they both have an axe to grind against the chief for messing up their lives. At lunch, Cyborg introduces himself to Gargulax and his companions, and it doesn't go well because the companion doesn't like him for some reason. Rita collects herself and resumes her bodily form, and she explains how she bailed on the whole secret situation. And the group talks about how they're not really superheroes or heroes, and how they may all need to step back and have normal lives, and then they end up arguing. With the chief dead, Gargulax decides, I'm probably saying that name wrong, Gargulax, decides to leave Rita alone, much to his companions' dismay. The team regroup after having tried to enjoy solitary activities to mostly no success, and they end up dancing together, including Kay, who's dancing inside Jane's mind, to the song Forever Young. And this is occurring in the bar in the real world. Gargulax, on his way out of, leaving the resort, gets a call from the Brotherhood of Evil that they've been waiting for a long time. And the next time we see him, a second later, he's warning the team to run before his own companion kills him and then blasts the team during their dance. So this was kind of a boring episode. Not a lot happened. They were just trying to do various activities at the resort, and they did have sort of that one argument, but it was kind of a boring episode. But they all kind of die at the end. The next episode was actually called Dead Patrol, given that they're dead. And the team find themselves on a boat in the middle of the river Styx, which, journey to the afterlife. And upon smelling sulfur, they all pass out. But Rita, who fakes passing out when some Reaper-type figures show up at the dock that the boat is about to dock at. At the mansion, 4 boxes containing the remains of the team arrive, and Larry is horrified upon opening them. Jane and Kay go to see their grandmother in the afterlife as Cliff sees his dad and Vic sees his mom, and they all have different conversation. Cliff's conversation with his dad being not very pleasant. Dorothy returns home to Larry, having arranged the remains of the team at the table, and she takes it relatively well. I was surprised. Danny the ambulance goes and picks up the Dead Boy Detective Agency while they're in the middle of a case, and their medium companion, who is not dead, whose name is Crystal, and takes them to the mansion so they can, I guess, help contact the deceased team. They hold a seance, and Rita makes contact from the afterlife, explaining that they're in a place that the dead boys recognize from her description as the Tunnel of Souls. And they agree to go along with Larry's spirit to the afterlife before they pull his soul from his body for the purpose of making the trip without really warning him that that's what they're going to do. It's kind of funny. Larry and the boys traipse through the afterlife. They find Rita, and then Jane, Vic, and Cliff are there as well, having left their respective family members that they were visiting. And all of them are attacked by a death minion, a minion of death. But they escape from her when an unidentified friend of Rita's intervenes, and they make their way back across the river in the boat, arriving back in their bandaged bodies. We have to get to what's going on. It was kind of funny. Dorothy decides that she's going to head off with the Dead Boys. And from what I'm reading, the Dead Boy Detective Agency is also going to be a show on HBO Max. And I thought the characters were cool. So I'll check that out when it comes on, and we'll see if it's any good. It seems like it could be good. Shapeshifter lady from the previous episode saunters through the mansion from upstairs. I don't know how she got up there, into the kitchen. And she asks the team if any of them would like some tea. And that was where that episode ended. Again, I didn't think too much of this episode. It had character development in the form of the conversations that the characters have with their deceased relatives, but I didn't think there was all that much value to it. Cyborg spent the whole time not connected to the internet and sort of whining about that. The best thing about this episode was the introduction of the Dead Boy Detective Agency, which, again, is going to be its own show, I'm hearing, and so that'll be interesting, but it was kind of a backdoor pilot for them, and there wasn't really anything else going on, and it set up Dorothy's departure, so whether we're going to continue to see her often or not, I don't know. We'll have to see how that goes in future episodes, but it was a decent premiere. I think this show is great. I like the characters a lot, so I'm looking forward to the rest of the season. I, of course, will review those episodes as they come out. For now, my friends, I'm going to take my leave, and I say, as always, peace and long life.